to remind me. You'll have to remind me where we left off last time.
Yeah, we were this.
I received 14 A and B, no more from you.
Oh, we are on episode 16 now. So last time we finished with the staff college discussions and how you moved in and out of your driving situation with Surupi auntie and um, and I think that thereabouts. And then we said that next time we will discuss about uh, the beginning, the journey of combat and battle, and after your tank period.
No, I'd gone to Baramulla in Kashmir on
Yes,
posting.
that
Did I
also.
tell you about our driving from deep
Yes,
south to
yes, you
total
did.
north?
Yes.
But somehow I want to go back for a while to the 62 war,
Okay.
because that is a major turning point for this country.
Right.
And we got hell of a thrashing. We learned a lot of lessons. But one or two things I must tell you. I'd spoken about certain failures of command. There was a Major General Anand Singh Patania I spoke of, who seemed to be destroyed in his mind and gave orders to withdraw when they were not necessary at one stage of the battle. There were various smaller numbers of Indian troops who fought extremely well and got high awards.
Okay.
There was a Subedar Yugender Singh, for instance, who got the Mahavir Chakra because he stood his ground till his ammunition finished and killed a whole lot of Chinese. So there are incidents of very good fighting by younger officers, Jawans, and JCOs. But higher command seemed to have failed. All right, but some of the personalities I mentioned, I told you that Anand Singh Patania, commanding 4 Division, failed. And I don't know if I told you about a General B.M. Kaur, a General Brij Mohan Kaur, Lieutenant General Brij Mohan Kaur. This is a very interesting study. He, if you recollect, was a Major General, in Quartermaster General of the Army when I was a captain. And I was with Surupi in the dog kennels in Babina. And he paid a surprise visit when then Brigade Commander Hari Badwar was trying to extract funds for him to make better accommodation for his officers. And he visited there and he made a whole lot of changes very efficiently. Now, if you look at the career of this officer, he was basically from the Army Service Corps. But he was a bosom pal of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister, and Krishna Menon, the Defense Minister. So they moved him into the infantry. And they gave him command as a Major General of 4 Infantry Division, the same, which ran from Tamang Frontier Division of Northeast Frontier Agency of that time. At that time, this division was posted in Ambala, in a peace station. It was supposed to do training. And when he took over the command of this division, he's an infantry commander. He said, you chaps do nothing during your training. You just sit there doing nothing, firing your guns once in a while. We have to build permanent accommodation for you. So I'll use the labor of the troops to build permanent accommodation here in Ambala.
Okay.
Everybody was very pleased because he saved the government crores of rupees by not going on training and by, instead of hiring civil contractors to build your permanent accommodation for troops, for officers and tanks and for garages and so on, he used troop labor. Therefore, no contract. So architects came and they gave him designs and he took the troops to build this. And then he did manage to cut many corners and build it in very quick time, a period of about 7 or 8 months. And I've lived in those accommodations. They're still leaking, by the way. And it's not easy to live inside them because you get all sorts of colds and coughs because there's dampness
Right.
from the roof and the walls. And really speaking, we had to redo the whole place. So that's a waste of time. Another quality of the officer was that he built the whole of Pragati Maidan in
Oh.
Delhi. Now, Pragati Maidan is the showpiece for various fairs and for book shows and for women's shows and for whatever. And it is near the Jamuna, and he built the whole accommodation at cut rate expenses, but very clever designs, some of which are being followed till today. This is advantage. But the same division goes off to the northeast to defend our northeastern border, and you know the result. What is the relationship between peacetime duties of an army and the actual war duties of an army?
Right.
We find it's absolutely essential that the troops be taken back for a year or two into peace stations, where they can, some of them can get their wives and children there for medical treatment and so on. But meanwhile, they do very hard training. Many jawans and officers will tell you, we wish we were back to the operational area because they're not, the workload is not in one quarter as it is in the peace station. In the peace station, not only do you have to maintain very high level of barracks and cleanliness and quality, but you have to have a very high level of tank and equipment and gun and other military weapons and equipment and systems in high state of repair. You are inspected again and again, reports are made on you, and you do a lot of field firing training. You actually go onto ranges and in mock battles and other things, you train your troops to function as companies or platoons of tank troops or tank squadrons or whatever it is. And the commanding officer has a chance to train his squadron commander the way he thinks they ought to be trained for war. And then to test these exercises at a higher commander, major general level or brigadier level, your regiments are put to exercises one against the other. For instance, you may have a tank regiment fighting against a squadron of somebody else's armor, or you may have a brigade of infantry fighting against a company of enemy, and with tank support on both sides, and you do the various operations of war and you practice. If you don't do this and suddenly send troops off to operational areas, they are not trained. Your training is essential. You know, what is a man? He comes here and every few years he gets changing around. He goes through a course of instruction. He goes to, if he's a good player in hockey or football or something, he's in the regimental team, he's going there. You send guard duties out from all units to senior commanders who are authorized those guard duties. All those people have to turn by turn be trained during a period of couple of years. Now, if you don't do this, the results are easy to discern. That's one lesson there. You can't have a division fighting a battle. The other operations are that if you know nothing about a sector, like for instance, we have got these high altitude regions, both in Ladakh and in Northeast, they're totally different.
Right.
Ladakh is a high-end plateau at an average height of about 14 to 16,000 feet.
Yes.
Whereas in the East, you have the Himalayas going up to great heights, up to 22,000 in with passes. You come onto a Tibetan plateau, which is at the height of about 14 to 16,000 feet, flat as a desert. But the snow and precipitation there is much less than in Ladakh. Ladakh is covered with snow.
Yes.
Here you don't get covered with your mountains do, but not the plateau. Now these are very interesting points of geography. And the geography is fantastic, let me tell you. As a tourist, you would be ready to pay millions of dollars to go see them. Of course, the government pays millions of dollars and more, billions of dollars for us to be there for 2 years. We do see all the beauties, but we do get fed up of the thing over a period of time. Now, the personality we're talking about is Lieutenant General Kaur, Bridge Mohan Kaur, BM Kaur. He was made because Jawaharlal Nehru and Krishna Menon, the communist prime minister, were favoring their own men in the uniform. He did not like the other people in the uniform who did not agree with them and were ready to say so. They appointed Kaur, who's an AC officer from Quartermaster General, as the Chief of General Staff. in charge of all operations. Then when Pandit Nehru said, throw the Chinese out, thinking that he's got a very powerful army, much experience against Chinese communist armies which had not been tested in battle, see? Into areas of which he had no idea, into high altitude areas which we did not know how to live and breathe over there, didn't have the clothes over there, didn't have the roads and tracks. I explained last time to you that a division in our mountains, a full infantry division, about 14,000 men, requires 400 tons of stores every day.
Yes.
Mostly of ammunition, fuel, machine guns, artillery guns, tanks, supply arrangements, and human manpower. They have to keep coming and going. For that, you need roads, you need tracks and all that, but you can't do it on a goat path, which we attempted to do, much to our disaster. So these are lessons. Now, Bridgman Corps, when he was told that there was failure at the Namkachu, you see, Namkachu is a river at about 13,000 feet, where our first brigade, Brigadier John Dalby, I think it was 7 Mountain Brigade, who was overrun by the Chinese attack, who attacked shouting Hindi, Chini, bye bye. Most of these people who lived were taken prisoner by the Chinese and kept in Tibet, in prisoner of war camps, in which my brother-in-law, then Lieutenant Colonel K.K. Tabari of the Signals, married to the younger of my elder 2 sisters, Kamla, taken prisoner. And the information the family got was missing, believed killed. Because nobody survives on those high mountains and snows if you are a casualty and you're not picked up and brought back. Or if you're captive, we didn't know. The Chinese never told us who was captive. So, General B.M. Cole went off in a hurry to say, all right, Pandit Nehru, I'll control the situation. The famous egotistical I never works. You have to be a little humble, especially when you reach high command. You have to be humble. Bullshitting, as we call it, in the army, doesn't work. So, he arrived there. He made one visit, in a helicopter to the disaster as it was taking place, north of Tawang, high mountains of Namkachu. He saw what he saw, and he said, withdraw, we can't handle this. And he got pulmonary edema, ill because he didn't know how to live in a high altitude. Even if you step out of your aircraft without an oxygen or something for a few minutes, you're likely to get the disease, where the blood of the body, which is at sea level rate of flow, which I only remember the sea level thing of pounds in square inches, is 16 pounds per square inch. When you get up to the high altitude, is 11 pounds per square inch.
Right.
So the air pressure reduces and the blood precipitates from the blood vessels of the lung, precipitates like liquid into the lung, and you can't breathe, it chokes you. As pulmonary, the lung edema, right? And you have to bring that casualty back straight to lower altitude or put him in area where high pressure can be maintained around him as per the plans, and then give him the medication, otherwise he can't survive. Right. We learned these lessons. But Chinese already learned that because they'd been in Tibet some years earlier.
Right.
And anyway, people don't realize what it is like to fight at high altitude. Same as in the case of Ladakh. A big bone Paul came running back, went straight into a hospital, and we don't see much of him again. After he was thrown out of the army, he wrote a book. I'm not quite recollecting the title, but he published this huge book to justify whatever he did.
Oh.
Now, when you're a general and you failed, you don't want to justify why you failed. You want to find out what were the lessons you learned and that others should follow which you did not. So he wrote this story, my story or whatever it is called, by B.M. Kaur, and he published it. He had to pay for the publication because nobody would buy his book. And he was ostracized in the army. When he was retired as an old man and somebody met him in a bank, he said, "Oh, hello, I'm so-and-so." No, people turn their backs and walk away because he was blamed to let down the military. It's one thing to be let down by politicians, it's another thing to be let down by the military also. All right, so that's B.M. Paul. He came to Greece. Another reputation went shattered. A very high quality officer for administration, but no good as far as command of troops is concerned. There's a difference. So people must realize. Second point that you must learn here is that politicians cannot command troops. You say that military generals shouldn't be politicians, but I think the alternate also should work. Politicians shouldn't pretend to be that they are better generals than the generals. They make a mess of the affair. They have no idea as to how to handle it. They have no idea of the terrain or of strategy or tactics. It's teach not in India. In America and Europe and other places, they all have forefathers and members of the family who fought battles again and again, and they're much experienced. And I think perhaps they have more idea about the strategic and tactical battlefield than our politicians do here. Much you may learn in due course of time, but you must consult your military commanders and not avoid consulting. The next lesson here is in the business of running a country, you cannot treat your military with suspicion. You understand this point. You know, when a politician becomes the prime minister, what's he afraid of? He's afraid of his own army because they're so powerful. I mean, you see what happened in Pakistan or in Burma or in Southeast Asia, all the states of Africa, the ex-colonials. The military are the most highly efficient organizations. They tend to take over governance. In the Indian Army, as luck would have it, we had some very fine commanders and very fine leaders. General K.M. Karyappa, later Field Marshal, is an example. Who taught you that, look, you're a democracy, and you, the military, have to obey the Constitution of India. So we have made ourselves slaves to the Constitution of India. We are not slaves to the government in power. That means we can stand up and say no. It happened to me many times in my career. Was a bullshit type. So when somebody gave me hukams I didn't consider were correct, I'd say refer to the Supreme Court. Let them decide whether this is a legal or an illegal order, which has only got some political side event to it. See, second point is you can't have an enemy army trying to control your own people. Now, if you go back into the ancient histories of military warfare, these were raised by kings all down the line for the main purpose of controlling the public.
Right.
But then, once they became powerful enough and they wanted to control somebody else's kingdom and cross the borders, the military was involved on the borders. Then who would control the public in the country? So they raised the police force. So you need a police force for controlling the internal situations in the country, which sometimes are quite disastrous. And you need a military to look after your borders and to sort out anybody else who wants to come in from another country. So there's not what shall I call it, dichotomy here, but there's a lot of respect for the army, for the police, especially in this efficient police force, and for the police, for the army. The trouble with our police force, Nivedita, I speak of India, of course, is that the chief minister of a state, who is a highly political entity, wants to use his police for his own political purpose. If they don't agree, he doesn't promote them, or he posts them to unworthy postings and make it miserable for them, so that they say, "Ji Hazur." Now, carrying on from this particular point, because you know the next generation must sort this out. I mean, we still got this problem. We had a person, I'm now not recollecting his name, it'll come back to me, who was a short-statured, very efficient bureaucrat. He became the cabinet secretary of India under Jawaharlal Nehru. Served a couple of terms there. Then he was elevated as governor of West Bengal, which is not an easy state to be governor of. Bengalis, as you know better than I, are very, very sharp people, and you've got to wake up very early in the morning
mm,
to be able to argue against them.
mm,
And all the revolutions of this country, by the way, started in Bengal. Right? All right. So he is also governor of Punjab, which again is a difficult state.
mm.
You see for yourself, since our independence, there's this problem of divisiveness.
Yeah.
Somebody wants a Kurdistan. There are a lot of drugs coming in from the Pakistani border to make us dull-witted, which we are. And a lot of weapons being thrown in, so the terrorism is created inside here, and we start killing each other, which we do. It's not an easy state to be governor of. So the governor of that also. Then he was also governor of Mysore. I had the pleasure of meeting him when he used to come on a holiday to Uta Command. When later in my life, I was an instructor at the staff college, so 4 or 5 years more down the line, 1970, right? After he retired, this gentleman, whose name is slipping my tongue, was asked by the government of India to write a police commission report. What do we do with our police? He made a fantastic paper, which is quoted by all senior police officers, retired and whatnot, and even by people like me who like to study these things. It's the exact point what has to be done with the police. And one of the major things of the police is that the police must not be at the beck and call of the political authority. Yes, they must be responsible for their own postings and their own promotions or otherwise.
Right.
And they must report to the chief minister of the state or the prime minister of the country in due course to carry out his orders, provided they are legal. Right? Let's see if we can achieve that in your generation or maybe the next one. Okay. So we've spoken about core. I wanted to tell a story because there's no individual who can be a master of the scene. It's a combined thinking. Civilian bureaucrats, politicians, military commanders put their heads together. And the result of that is far more effective than a dictatorial command. That is what I feel is the weakness of nations like Communist China and to some extent Russia, because it's a dictatorial command. You have to have a relationship because there is no great God here running your country. He does not have the wisdom to see all sides of the picture. So if he has a number of advisors, they give him the various sides of the picture. You see? And then he makes his decisions. And there's the law which has to hold him to certain areas and not allow him to use excessive authority, especially against people who he feels are not obeying his command. Dissent is a great thing. Now in the military, we do deal with very strong order and discipline type of command. But then we have to train our officers to understand in the field of battle. Somebody far away at the back who doesn't even see what's happening here gives you an idiotic command.
Right.
You have to find ways and means of doing what you think ought to be done without getting court-martialed on the spot. Removed. If you fail, you're going to buy it anyway. If you succeed, even if you disobey those orders, then it's all up the line. See? All right. So 62 war bothers me because it is changing face of India. Did I tell you the story about my visit to a post office in Kannur near Wellington during this 62 war? I don't know if I could. I don't recollect. But better to repeat rather than to forget.
Yeah.
On a Sunday morning, Subi and I had to buy some stuff which was not available in the staff college canteen. I was still a student. And we got into my little car. We drove down to the town of Kannur, where staff college is at about 17,500 feet. Kannur is at about 17,000. So go down the hill a bit, and the nice little town, all Tamil people there. And it was a Sunday. Normally post offices are closed on Sunday. And I saw, every now and then you come across a post office as you go through the town to buy what you have to buy. See, large crowds of women lined up at his post offices. So being an inquisitive man, I stopped and I went to the postmaster with Tamilian and I asked him in English, I said, what's going on? Why are all these women lined up here? So he said, why don't you ask the lady? And there was a Tamil lady and he told the Tamil lady in Tamil, you know, whatever it is, this gentleman wants to know what we're doing here. So she sounded off. You know, our women from the Jugis of India are no less than the ones who are preening around in the high society. They're no less. He sounded off. I asked the chef, what is she saying? She's brought gold to hand over to the post office, to get a little post office chip saying so many tolas of gold weighed in front of her, stamped by a postmaster's stamp and a little initial piece of paper. Now I was surprised to hear this because, you know, in Tamil Nadu, women and people are very poverty stricken. They're much better off now, but I'm talking from 1962. And I said, look, how is this happening? Because when a poor woman gets married to some fellow, her family and others, you know, really bend their backs and give her some gold, thick ornament. They're not for decorative purposes. They're for the purposes when the spouse upsticks and disappears from the scene, then she has something to fall back on. She knows nothing about savings and about accounts and about, you know, money in the bank or something like that. So she has this gold or silver, and she wears this on her anklets or on her, a few of them, on the anklets or on the wrist, and maybe an odd around the neck. Otherwise, it's all kept hidden at home. Now she's bringing all the gold she's got, ornaments, thick gold ornaments, handing over to the post office and getting this purchase return signed by the post office. So I said, tell me, why are you doing this? So she said in Tamil, he said, we don't know what's happened. But some big boss of India known as Nehru, who said that there's disaster on our frontier in the northeast. The Chinese have attacked. So we don't know what that is. They don't even know where the northeast is. For that matter, they don't even know where Delhi is. But he has said to defend this country, I want gold. Because, you know, the Indian rupee has no value. When you're at war, the money has no value. But if I want to buy weapons or ammunition from abroad, they want either gold or they want dollars. So Pandit Nehru pleaded on all Doordarshan channels to say, I want gold, give me gold, so that I can get this military together and the country together to defend ourselves. Otherwise, the whole of our northeast should be taken by the Chinese, right? We don't know. Of course, there was an attack in Ladakh also.
Right.
But Pandit Nehru didn't much view about Ladakh. He says it's a desert wasteland at high altitude, not a blade of grass grows there, and putting his words. Anyway, the strategic significance of Ladakh, we will teach later. So these ladies were all lined up on the post offices handing over their gold. Now that struck me. What makes this nation a country? Why? Why is India a country? Then you can travel a few kilometers from your village. The culture changes, the dialect changes, and the manner of survival changes. We're a disparate nation. There are all sorts of castes, creeds, you know, upper caste, lower caste, central caste, God knows how many. Mountain men, plains men. How are we together? The British gave us a geography, right? We managed to get it together. And I somehow felt that there's more to this soil of our country than meets the eye. Many sophisticated, well-read people don't believe a word of what I say. But I say those born in this land of the Himalayas in the north and the two seas in the south are a lucky people because they have some spiritual values which have come from generations. Many of those spiritual values came from the Bengal area, east and west. Many came from South India. A few came from Punjab. I'm told the Vedas are written on the Saraswati River, which is certainly Punjab. So people who thought since ancient times, 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, have thought of many things other than the human life. What does it all mean? What is this world for? Where do we go from here? Do we die or what happens to us? So all sorts of theories are here, but we have got a philosophy on this. And that is our Vedanta. And I think that's the culture of it. So next is that we are disparate people. We were given rise to the 4 great, out of 7 great religions on Mother Earth. 4 great religions have risen in India. 3 in Palestine. I'll cover the Palestinian one first. You've got Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Very, very high thinking prophets they've got. Prophet Moses, for instance, Musa, the great prophet in ancient times, when the so-called Israelites were slaves in Egypt. And he was the first prophet who said, I have to lead you to the land of milk and honey. Right? That is Moses. He created a lot of miracles. Such as Moses and the rod. He created water. And he created fire. And he created the vision of the Nile when he tried to make the Israelis escape. Now, these people may say it's theory or maybe it's mythology or something, but there's some fact behind this. Something that has happened because the Israelis were there and they did go up to Palestine. Then Islam came and the Prophet Muhammad has given the most beautiful religion, the most peaceful religion on earth. Sadly, interpreted it incorrectly by many terrorist mullahs for their political advantage. Right? Vedanta itself, if you think of true Vedanta, it's a huge philosophy. Some of it is given in the Gita. Huge philosophy. But it is led astray by the pundits because they want to have power of the people. So they must come and pray here and put up so much rupee here, and so they're making money. Same with the church, the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church, Christianity. The Padris have it. They must have a hierarchy, must have archbishops, must have bishops, and somebody has to pay for that. You are paying for it. Because you go to the church, you put some money there. It's a business. So where is the philosophy? So whatever the philosophy is very similar. The great religions of India, Vedanta is the first one that I mentioned. After that, there was the rise of Buddhism. The difference of Buddhism being that Buddhism is a propagating religion. It wants to spread the word. Whereas Vedanta, or what people incorrectly call Hinduism, does not spread the word. It shows you what the reality is. It is for you. Join or not join or don't bother about it. We give full freedom of mental capacity for those who are capable to understand and follow or not follow.
Right.
Go to mandir or don't go. We are not bothered. But Buddha realized that human beings required a little more careful instruction because they just don't have the stuff up here. And they're too egotistical. So he laid down precepts. And those precepts were then projected firstly to Tibet, and from Tibet to China, and to Japan, and to Southeast Asia. So Hinduism, as we call it, or Vedanta, has gone to Southeast Asia from the Konarak trade ships, the mighty power of Kalinga, for instance. You see, we trade all over Southeast Asia, or the Chola Empire from the south. British historians will never tell you about this. This is the period between 300 BC and till the Mughals first came here in 12 AD. What happened in all these centuries? Nobody talks about it. You have the Chola Empire in the south. You have you had Lalitha Tatya Empire in Kashmir, who conquered the whole of North India in his time. You see? So you had the great power of Magad, which is, I suppose, present-day Bihar, and which conquered the whole of the country under Ashoka the Great. He conquered the whole country and produced Buddhism for the nation. It was Adi Sankara, I think about the 4th or 5th century AD, when that monk, without any learning or without any teaching, from the age of 2 or 3, he was quoting the Shastras, he was quoting the Vedas, he was writing Upanishads. And by the age of 32, he was dead. But in that short period of time, he spread the word of Vedanta to the northernmost part of Kashmir, to the easternmost part of India, and to the westernmost part of India, and to the southernmost part of India. There's one man to convert India back from Buddhism to Vedanta, which he did. But Vedanta doesn't propagate. All right. So there is something in this land. That's why I was a South Indian woman. And our only security of gold to somehow chap called Jawaharlal Nehru or some, because some joker has come into the Northeast. See, all right. I had great respect for the people of India. Though we were from all walks and clans, couldn't even understand each other's language.
Right.
To stand firm against the Chinese attack. Many people say, when the Chinese came suddenly down up to the Assam plains, why did they withdraw? The answer to that is they found the whole of India standing up. They knew that you had to be along and fight this. They didn't have the communications across the Tibetan heartland from northern China, from Manchuria, to support an army there. They've taken the last 60, 70 years to build that.
Right.
So that they can have a better go at who when the time comes. Right? So there is something to that. And this great Himalaya, I mean, what a defensive. Do you know that the cold winds of the north, they freeze Europe, Northern Europe, Russia, are frozen for almost 10, 15 years in the winter. Frozen. You can't live without getting heating. You spend crores and crores of rupees or whatever the currency is to keep your homes warm. In India, we don't have to do that. We've got the Himalaya because it stops those winds. See? It may be an impossible barrier in our time, but now it's become a passable barrier because of mountain weaponry. We see where that goes. Anyway, we went off on a tangent a bit. The 62 war was a great lesson that firstly, you have a northern border which is nearly 4,000 kilometers long from the Far East to the Ladakh, and you've got to defend it. Otherwise, the idiots and barbarians are going to come and control your country, which you may not desire to allow. And I spoke to you last time about the aspect of withdrawal, that the Americans and British are very adept at running as fast as the heels can carry them. I'd like to ask you, take the United States of America, the most powerful state in the world,